When you stop obsessing over his every move, he feels the shift. And I don't mean that in some manipulative, game-playing kind of way. I mean it on a deep, energetic level. See, when you're constantly thinking about someone, wondering if they're going to text you back, questioning what they meant when they said that one thing, analyzing their tone, their emojis, their silences, all of that energy has a direction. It's going outward. It's being broadcast. People feel when you're emotionally invested to that degree. Even if they can't quite put their finger on it, they know they have you. And when someone knows they have you fully, unquestionably, before they've earned that place in your life, that changes how they treat you. It's human nature. When something feels secure, we start to relax. And that's not always a bad thing. Relaxation can be beautiful when it's mutual, when it's safe, when it's built on trust. But when it's one-sided, when you're the only one investing, the only one thinking 10 steps ahead, the only one worried about where this is going while he's coasting, that dynamic creates imbalance. And imbalance kills attraction. So when you stop giving a damn, really stop, not in a bitter, angry way, but in a peaceful, resolute way, that's when the dynamic shifts. You're no longer orbiting around him. You're no longer reacting to every breadcrumb of attention he gives you. You're not anxiously waiting by the phone. You're not trying to decode his behavior. You've brought all of that energy back to yourself. And he feels it. He feels that withdrawal of energy. And here's the wild part. That absence is often louder than your presence ever was. Because your presence became predictable. It became expected. It was always there, always ready, always hoping. But your absence, your disinterest, that hits different. That creates questions. That creates space for curiosity. He starts wondering, wait, what changed? Why isn't she responding the way she used to? Why does she seem so unaffected? And you want to know why that's so powerful? Because most people don't expect you to leave. They expect you to stay. They expect you to keep showing up even when they're inconsistent. They expect you to keep proving yourself even when they're not doing anything worth being proved to. And when you stop playing that game, when you stop giving energy to someone who's not matching you, they lose their sense of control. And let's be honest, control is addictive, especially for someone who's gotten used to you caring more than they do. The moment you stop, they start spiraling. Maybe not outwardly at first. Maybe they act cool. Maybe they pretend. It doesn't bother them, but it does. Because it's not just about you anymore. It's about the way your indifference makes them confront their own behavior. They start asking questions they didn't have to ask before. Was I taking her for granted? Is she seeing someone else? Did I misread how into me she was? Why doesn't she care anymore? And those questions eat at the ego. That's what really gets them. It's not even always love or deep emotional connection. It's the loss of certainty. It's realizing they don't own your attention anymore. And here's what makes it even more impactful. You're not doing it to make a point. You're doing it because something in you woke up. You got tired of pouring into someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. You got tired of waiting for someone to realize what they had while they still had it. And so you decided to stop giving a damn, not out of spite, not as some twisted test, but because you finally realized that your peace, your sanity, your self-worth, those things matter more than keeping someone who only shows up when they feel like it. And ironically, that's when they usually come running. Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because you stopped, because you stepped away from the game, because you remembered who the hell you are. That shift in energy is undeniable. You're no longer available on command. You're no longer emotionally attached to the outcome. You're just living your life. And that's when they start losing their mind. They feel the distance. They feel the space where your obsession used to live. And that vacuum, that silence, that calm indifference, it makes noise. It rattles their comfort. It threatens their ego. It exposes the imbalance they never wanted to see. So if you're sitting there thinking, what's the secret to making him wake up? What's the one thing that'll make him realize what he's losing The answer isn't in some trick or phrase or text message. The answer is in your detachment, in your freedom, in your refusal to invest in someone who's not investing back. That's when the real magic happens. Not when you're begging, not when you're chasing, but when you walk away with grace and don't look back. That's when he starts losing his mind. You know, it's funny. When you're always there, texting back instantly, available for every plan, checking in on him even when he's pulled back, he doesn't really hear you. Your presence, though kind and loving, becomes background noise. It's like a song on repeat. Beautiful, but taken for granted. But the moment you stop giving a damn, when you finally step back and reclaim your energy, your absence, that's what makes the loudest noise of all. Think about it. People don't realize how much space you were filling in their life until you vacate it. When you stop initiating, stop reacting, stop asking what's wrong, that silence is deafening. It creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, he's forced to feel something he's been ignoring. Your value. Most people live in this comfortable illusion that someone will always be there. When you've been showing up consistently, especially for a guy who's only giving half energy, he doesn't feel the urgency to step up. Why would he? He already knows that no matter how lazy his effort, you'll still be there tomorrow. Still texting, still trying, still caring. And so he gets used to it. He starts to expect it. But the moment you go quiet, the moment you stop caring so damn much, he doesn't just feel confused. He feels shaken. He starts replaying your last conversation, wondering, what shifted? Was it something he said? Something he did? Did you meet someone else? Suddenly, the spotlight that was always on him, the one you kept turned on with your attention, your time, your emotional investment, it disappears. And without that light, he's left in the dark, fumbling. That's when the panic sets in. Because when someone's always been emotionally fed by your validation, your good morning texts, your how was your day check-ins, your energy, they get addicted to it. They may not appreciate it, but they feel it. And once you withdraw that steady stream of attention, they go into withdrawal. They don't know how to function without that dopamine hit of your affection. And that's when the tables turn. Now, this isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing cold or heartless or pretending you don't care when you actually do. It's about realignment. It's about stepping into your power and finally realizing that your worth doesn't come from how much you care about someone. It comes from how much you care about yourself. And that shift is felt instantly. Suddenly, he's texting first. He's asking if you're okay. He's noticing the lack of emojis, the dry replies, the missed calls. Why? Because the rhythm we got used to has been disrupted. The emotional soundtrack of his life, your presence is gone. And now he's forced to tune in, to really listen. And for the first time, he's the one wondering. But here's the truth. The power isn't in making him feel crazy. The power is in not needing him to. The moment you stop trying to convince someone of your value is the moment they finally start to see it, because you've stopped giving them front row seats to a show they never paid for. You've stopped auditioning. And you know what? That silence, it's not just heard by him. You hear it too. You begin to hear your own needs, your own voice, your own peace. You start remembering what it feels like to put yourself first, to not chase, not fix, not force. And that clarity is liberating. Because now you're no longer afraid of losing him. You're just done losing yourself. So yes, when you stop giving a damn, he starts losing his mind, but more importantly, you start finding your own again. That's the real win. You know, there's something incredibly magnetic about someone who doesn't need your validation to feel complete. And I want to be very clear. There's a huge difference between pretending you don't care and genuinely embodying the energy of someone who knows their worth, regardless of who is or isn't showing up for them. That's what I mean when I say confidence is magnetic, not clingy. When you stop giving a damn, not out of anger, but out of clarity. That's when everything starts to shift. You see, most people operate from a place of fear in relationships, fear of losing someone, fear of not being enough, fear of being abandoned. So they start clinging, they chase, they over-explain, they accept inconsistent behavior, hoping that somehow their patience will win the person over. But what really ends up happening is they lose themselves in the process. They start shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. And that's when they become invisible. But when you get to that place where your self-worth isn't up for negotiation, when you truly know you're enough, something powerful happens. You stop chasing. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop bending over backward for someone who can't even meet you halfway. And suddenly your energy changes. You're no longer reaching. You're attracting. And trust me, people feel that, especially the man who thought he had you on standby. He starts noticing that your texts don't come as quickly. Your reactions aren't as intense. Your mood isn't dictated by whether he's leaning in or pulling away. And that's what gets under his skin. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that triggers a realization. He realizes he's no longer the center of your emotional universe. He's no longer the one who can take up all that mental real estate in your mind. And that's when it starts messing with him. Because here's the thing, people tend to value what they think they might lose. And when you were giving too much, too fast, too often, he got used to it. It became expected. It became easy. But confidence disrupts comfort. And real confidence doesn't announce itself. It just moves differently. It doesn't demand attention, it commands it. It doesn't argue, it just exits when it's not being respected. It doesn't beg, it blesses people with space. And that kind of self-assurance, that's rare. That's what stands out. Because most people are out here trying to prove their worth instead of just being it. When you stop giving a damn, you stop trying to prove yourself to someone who's unsure about you. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you're choosing. You're not anxiously checking if they like you, you're checking if they align with the life you're building. And when you show up like that, you flip the dynamic. You're no longer the one performing, you become the standard. Now, does that mean you don't care at all? Of course not. You're human, you have feelings, but it means you care more about your peace than about pleasing someone who's not meeting you where you are. It means you're not operating from scarcity, you're operating from abundance. You know there's more out there, more people, more love, more alignment. So you don't get stuck trying to convince someone of your value when you already know it. That's when he starts to lose his mind. Not because you played a game, but because you stopped playing his game. You stop being predictable. You stop being available for inconsistency. You stop being that soft landing for someone who didn't offer the same for you. And that absence, it echoes. He'll scroll through his phone and wonder why your name isn't lighting it up anymore. He'll replay your conversations in his head and ask himself if he took you for granted. He'll think about the energy you used to give so freely, and he'll realize that it's gone. Not because you're being petty, but because you finally remembered who you are. So, no, it's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. Clear on what you deserve, clear on what you're no longer accepting, clear on how you want to be loved. And from that clarity comes confidence. Quiet, unwavering, magnetic confidence. That's the shift. That's the energy that makes someone sit up and pay attention. That's what makes him lose his mind. Not because you're trying to make him chase you, but because you're finally choosing you. And when you choose you, everything changes. You know, when you stop giving a damn, it's not just about silence or stepping back. It's about standards. And this is something we need to talk about because a lot of people confuse not caring with playing hard to get or pretending you don't feel anything. That's not what this is about. What it's really about is recognizing your own value so deeply, so clearly, that you naturally stop entertaining anything or anyone that doesn't rise to meet you where you are. See, when you pull back from someone who's been taking you for granted, it's not some passive-aggressive tactic. It's a recalibration. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. You're not manipulating, you're maturing. And that's the shift. That's the moment where you go from being someone who's emotionally tied to how they act to someone who's centered in what you accept. And that shift, that is what makes him start to lose his mind. Because here's what happens. When you're constantly giving, constantly showing up, constantly proving, explaining, waiting, tolerating, he gets used to it. He gets comfortable. Even if he's not doing anything to earn it. And maybe you keep thinking, if I just show him how loyal I am, how patient, how loving, how understanding, eventually he'll value it. But it doesn't work that way. Because value isn't taught through giving more, it's taught through what you refuse to accept. When you stop giving a damn, you're not becoming cold, you're becoming clear. You stop chasing explanations. You stop trying to decode mixed signals. You stop rewarding inconsistency. And in doing so, you teach him something more powerful than any conversation ever could. You show him that your energy is a privilege, not a given. That your love, your presence, your attention, they don't come free of standards. That's when he starts to feel it. The loss, the space, the void you used to fill so effortlessly. The silence, where once there was availability. And it's not the silence that drives him crazy, it's what the silence represents. That maybe, just maybe, you're not waiting anymore. That you've stopped hoping, that you've realized your worth doesn't live in his hands, and you've started acting accordingly. That's when the panic sets in. Because before, he always knew you'd come back. He always knew he could send a message and get a response. That no matter how long he went quiet, you'd still be there, making excuses for his behavior. But now, you're not picking up every emotional breadcrumb he throws your way. You're not responding just because he remembered to show up. You're not letting him stretch your boundaries just to keep the peace. You've raised the bar. And not with words, but with actions, with distance, with dignity. And let me tell you something, nothing is more attractive, more powerful than someone who knows how to walk away from anything that insults their soul. And when he sees that you've become that person, when he realizes you're no longer waiting around for him to be ready or sure or less confused, he starts to spiral. Because he didn't think you'd ever stop caring. He thought he could coast. He thought he could come and go, and you'd always be there, heart wide open. But now you've stopped giving a damn. And not in a bitter way, but in a beautiful way. In a way that says, I don't need chaos to feel desired. I don't need confusion to feel connected. I don't need to lower my standards to keep someone around. That's what gets to him. Not the silence, not the distance, but the fact that you've evolved, that you're no longer emotionally accessible in the same way, that the door he used to walk through whenever he pleased now has a lock. And not just any lock, but one built from self-worth, boundaries, and peace. And when he comes knocking again, he won't find desperation. He won't find anxiety. He won't find the version of you who tolerated less just to feel more. What he'll find is someone who got tired of asking for the bare minimum. Someone who realized that love shouldn't feel like waiting. That clarity is sexy. That effort is attractive. That consistency is the bare minimum, not the bonus prize. And here's the kicker. When you raise your standards, you don't chase anymore. You attract. You attract better energy. You attract clearer communication. You attract partners who don't play games because they're not afraid of your strength. They respect it. And the ones who can't meet it, they fall away. They panic. They spiral. Because you've stopped feeding their comfort and started feeding your own power. That's when everything shifts. That's when he starts losing his mind. You know what happens when you stop giving a damn? Something really interesting. Something that flips the dynamic entirely. He starts losing his mind. And not because you're trying to manipulate him or play games, but because you've done the one thing that most people are too scared to do. You've taken your power back. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked. The power of mystery. See, when you're emotionally wrapped up in someone, it's easy to start over-explaining. You justify your feelings, you try to get them to see your point, you react when they pull away, and without even realizing it, you become incredibly predictable. Every time he pulls back, you reach out. Every time he's inconsistent, you overcompensate, and that predictability becomes your trap. But when you stop giving a damn, really stop, you break that pattern. You stop performing. You stop needing his attention as a form of validation. And you stop giving him the script he's been relying on to feel secure in your presence. Suddenly, you're no longer a predictable part of his day. You're not texting first. You're not chasing after answers. You're not waiting by the phone or decoding mixed signals. You're just living. And that silence, that shift, it hits him harder than any long emotional message ever could. You see, mystery isn't about being manipulative. It's about creating space. It's about giving the other person room to feel your absence, to feel the gap between what they once took for granted and what they now miss. When you're always available, always explaining, always forgiving without boundaries, there's no room for them to wonder. There's no curiosity, no intrigue, no urgency. But the moment you go quiet, not in anger, not in a pouty, look what you did kind of way, but in peace, something shifts in their brain. That quiet confidence is loud. And when you disappear from their emotional radar, they start to panic. They begin asking themselves questions they haven't had to ask in a long time. Why hasn't she reached out? Is she seeing someone else? Did I push her too far? That mystery you created by simply pulling your energy back, by no longer over-investing, it forces them to reevaluate. It stirs something because now you're not where they left you. And here's what's beautiful about that. This mystery isn't fake. It's not a performance. It's the natural result of you finally turning inward. You're focused on your life again. You're out with friends. You're putting your energy into your work, your health, your joy. And when you stop orbiting around someone else's indecisiveness, you become captivating in the most authentic way. People chase what they're unsure of. They think about what isn't guaranteed, and they obsess over what they can't control. When you were giving too much, you made it easy. He didn't have to wonder if you were still there. He didn't have to earn your attention. But when you stop giving a damn, when your peace becomes louder than your presence, it wakes him up. Because now he has to work for your energy. Now the balance has shifted. And if he wants access to the version of you that once cared so deeply, he has to show up. He has to put in effort. Because you've stopped being the one carrying the emotional weight of the relationship. You've stopped being the one trying to fix, to solve, to save. You're done playing the rescuer. You've become the reward. And here's the twist. When he starts to lose his mind, when he starts texting more, calling more, trying to pull you back in, you won't be in the same place anymore. Emotionally, you'll be different. Because taking your power back changes you. You'll look at him with clearer eyes. You'll ask yourself, is he really what I want? Not just do I want him, but does he add value to the life I'm building now that I've stopped giving a damn? That's the moment you win. Not because he comes running back, not because he finally sees your worth, but because you've stopped needing him to. You're no longer operating from fear, from lack, from insecurity. You're grounded